Okay, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. So I'm Ali, and I am my plan going forward for some lovely podcasts for people is to talk about health, talk about wellness, and to talk about what's going on in the world, a little bit of woo stuff, whatever kind of feels like we want to talk about with lovely women and men. It doesn't have to, it doesn't have to be. And to kick off, I've got the lovely Preet Halbert, and you're a nutritional consultant. Is that correct? You're a
That's
nutritional
right.
consultant. You're a gardener extraordinaire. You're a medium as well. Um,
Absolutely.
are there any other strings to your bow that we need to know about, Preet?
Oh, thanks for that, Ali. Yeah, actually, there's one more. So I have also have a career as an IT consultant. So
Oh,
I
that's a
work
bit
in
boring, isn't it?
yeah, yeah. Actually, I prefer all
You
the other
just don't
titles.
look like an IT consultant to
Oh,
me.
really? Oh,
Yeah.
okay. That's cool. Yeah, I do, but I do, and that's something I've done for the last sort of 30 plus years. I only got into natural health and gardening and even mediumship more recently. I'd say gardening probably for the last 10 years. Nutrition work I started probably 3, 4, 5 years ago now. Thinking back to when I started studying, which was probably 2020. And then, yeah, the mediumship is really new. That's this year. I've discovered that I actually have a gift in that space.
So I met you through the School of Natural Medicine where we both studied. And so yeah, let's start off by talking about how you got into natural health because this is not our first rodeo, is it? We have done a podcast before, which did get taken down quite quickly from YouTube, which how long ago was that? Was that 2 years ago? Was it three?
Gosh,
I don't
might
know.
have even been, yeah, it might have been 2 years, even a year or 2 years ago.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So anyway, I will try and find that out. But I think we talked a little bit about how you got into natural health. But what was your main kind of way that you got into it? Was there
Yeah.
one thing, or were there multiple?
Yeah, interesting actually. I think there's always been something in me that's been interested in natural health and the natural world, whether that be Ayurveda, because I'm from an Indian background, so I grew up with my mum making ginger and turmeric concoctions, when we were sick, and all of these alternative things that she used for tummy aches, whether it's fennel or ajwain. So it's always been part of my life, and then as I sort of grew up in England, in Western society, Western culture, I did a lot of clubbing, partying as you do in your sort of teenage years, and went out to work and didn't really focus on my health. It was only when I got to a point in my life where I ended up having my gallbladder removed and subsequently really struggled with my diet and struggled with my health, that I decided that because I couldn't get any help from the conventional medical system to help me with those sort of side effects from the gallbladder surgery, I decided to sort of delve into the natural world. And I thought the only way I'm going to be able to do this is to go and teach myself how to heal myself. And then I discovered the School of Natural Medicine. As you say, that's where we met. We've had lots of conversations, in our kind of student groups and what have you over the years, which have been wonderful because your experience, I think you were kind of way ahead of me when I first joined. So you were like super experienced and super knowledgeable. So you've been like almost like one of the kind of heroes on the Signal group for all of us. If anyone's going to answer this, it's going to be Ali. So, and Ali's really straight. She's going to tell you how it is. She's not going to sugarcoat it.
Yeah, I think I think I think I upset a few people along the line there, as you can imagine. But anyway, I
But the
mean,
truth hurts.
I know this is
The
this is
truth
the
hurts,
problem
right?
when it's so against the grain, isn't it? And the thing that I still find really interesting, and I guess a lot of people go into kind of learning about natural medicine because they're kind of got their foot in both camps. But it's still I still find it really interesting that how much some people who are studying natural medicine have their foot in the mainstream. Like they'll still, they still think that jibby jabs are a great idea and things like that. So, but I think that's just people's journey, isn't it? Really,
Yeah.
I mean, I've over the years I've become a bit more gentle with people and less like you just gotta stop doing that because it's stupid. I completely understand everyone's on their own journey, and it's a continuum, isn't it? And we never stop learning. We never stop learning about stuff. And I think what's really interesting as well, we were all there at some point where we believed the lies as well. We believed what the mainstream was telling us. We used to go to the GP for advice, and so we've all been there. So yeah, I think, yeah, and I think I was a bit gung ho at some points, but
I
yeah,
think that's common. I think that's also quite common, though. I think when you first start to learn what is really happening in the world and how the medical system is really not doing what it's designed, or but perhaps it is doing what it's designed to do, but it's not doing what you need for your health.
Mm,
And I think suddenly, once one of the cards from the house of cards falls, the
mm,
others start to fall. And
mm,
then there's a real reckoning because you suddenly have to unlearn everything you thought was true. And
yeah,
that's quite challenging and difficult for people. It was definitely for me. Suddenly,
yeah,
everywhere you turn, you are questioning, well, is that genuine? Is that genuine? If the health system isn't genuine, what about the media outlets? What about I don't know, what about the church? What about all these things? And suddenly you've learned something or you've seen something, you can't unsee it. And for a long time, you do say, I know I did. I was quite angry. I was quite angry. And then I was lashing out at everybody who I thought should know better. Why don't you know? How come I know? And then you realize that actually, you know what? Everybody's on their own path. And
mm,
some people don't want to because it simply doesn't suit them. They like the status quo. They like the easy street. They're
hmm,
happy just going to work and taking their medicine every morning and drinking tap water. That's what they want to do. So let them do it.
yeah, yeah, 100%. Was it kind of the health kind of thing that kind of woke you up to the other kind of corruption that is happening in the world, or was it something else and that brought you round to kind of looking at health? How was it for you?
Yeah, so interesting question. Actually, my son was always let's just say down the rabbit hole. I had been probably from the age of 15.
Mm,
So actually, I do really credit him with a lot of the critical thinking that I've been able to use about
mm,
how the world really works.
mm,
So I think over the years he was sort of chipping away slowly. And bless him, he was very convicted from a very young age, wherever he learned. I think he learned actually from his one of his aunties, not on my side, on his father's side. She really started distilling a lot of information down to him. And he would come to me and I think, oh, what are you talking about? Oh, don't be silly. That's not how the system works. It's not how the world works. Just thinking, oh, he's just a kind of curious teenager. And actually, it wasn't until 2020 that I started to see the world for really what it was. And then a lot of the stuff he'd been saying from a young age started to sort of just started to make sense. So I went off exploring. And then, yeah, natural health was just a sort of a natural part of that sort of
mm,
journey. But
yeah,
for me specifically, it was after I had that gallbladder surgery and I couldn't kind of find answers anywhere. And that's because they don't know the answers. Had I known what I know now, I've successfully helped people remove sludge, um, gravel, stones, through some of the stuff we've learned from the School of Natural Medicine, how to do a proper gallbladder cleanse.
yeah,
So not only that, I think we talked recently that my daughter-in-law, who's currently breastfeeding, has been struggling with gallstones and how to help her shift away from having these regular attacks by just adjusting her diet and removing certain foods from her diet that are prone to giving her, attacks. So, bringing more vegetables and plant food into her diet, reducing the amount of meat consumption, that's hard on the body. It's it's heavy. It makes digestion very heavy. Just by making those minor adjustments, drinking more water, drinking more lemon, bringing more alkalizing
Mhm.
foods into the body, she hasn't had an attack for 4 weeks.
Yeah,
You
that's good,
and
isn't it?
yeah, it's so actually this stuff does work, and there's genuine experiences both you and I have had with our clients, with our family members, and even ourselves,
Mm.
that have really sort of turned the corner.
Is does she have any kind of emotions that are connected to that gallbladder uh,
Yeah.
stuff? You know, like anger and what else is gallbladder?
Stress.
Well, yeah, stress is like
It's the stress, isn't it?
stress is like has an impact on everything, doesn't it? Really.
And you're
Uh,
going to have, right? You've got two babies under the age of two. That's going to bring its own types of stress. I mean, there's different types of stress, right? There's relationship stress, there's financial stress, there's family stress, there's, whatever else, having two babies under the age of two. That's a stress in itself, isn't
am
it?
I good enough? Stress, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, because with young children, I think that kind of really throws a light onto yourself because you look at your own childhood and you probably want to be the perfect mum, and maybe you either want to go away from um how you were brought up, or you go towards, if it was a very good upbringing, but it also might bring out, if it wasn't such a good upbringing, unfortunately a lot of people don't have such great childhoods. It shines a light on that, and that brings that out a little bit more, so yeah, I think it's a very kind of interesting and challenging time, generally, really. How are you seeing? I mean, we're talking about your daughter-in-law's gallbladder and such, but how are you seeing people's health generally at the moment? Um, because it's been really interesting for me recently, because I moved to Wales, less than 6 months ago, and I walk around Carmarthen town and I'm like shocked to hell and back. It's like not only are there massively overweight people, but people that look so sick, so sick. Um, and I find it really, really shocking. I really want to hand my card out everywhere I go, and I think I think that's really rude. I haven't got around to that. And it's like, and when I go and get my nails done, which I do every so often, I see people in there that are clearly not well. But having your nails done is not really cheap, 25 quid up to 45 quid, or whatever. And these people look like that they have them done a lot. And I'm like, you're spending all this money on your nails. What about spending some money on your health? And I'm finding it really, really shocking, because I think in Hong Kong, I think, yes, there were people that were overweight and, had issues, but generally you wouldn't walk down the high street and you wouldn't see like massive people, really huge. What are you seeing at the moment? And have you seen a change kind of over time, or do you think it's been like this for like a long time?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I don't think my experience is dissimilar to yours. I think there's definitely an obesity crisis in the UK. Um, and I think that's definitely linked to so many things. If you was to sort of do a kind of brainstorming exercise, and you just put obesity in the middle, and then you kind of, thought about what is creating that
Yeah.
obesity. It's not just food, is it? I mean, that's obviously the key factor. But why are people going to ultra processed food, fast food? Why in this day and age, when we know everything that we know, and certainly this sort of collective consciousness and awakening around the health industry is creating a world for me now where know how bad certain foods are, but there's a community of people that just still haven't cottoned on.
Yeah,
So, so I think work-life balance is a real factor for people. Education, upbringing, if you're working, you're running around, you're in a car for 3 hours each way. Some people are. I know I've even lived that life where I could be in the car at 5 in the morning and not get back till 8 at night, and have to be thinking about, well, I need to eat in that time, so maybe I have to just grab a sandwich and a bag of crisps, right,
yeah,
and
yeah,
a drink.
yeah.
It may be that I get home and then there's nothing cooked, so I'm just going to grab something.
Mhm.
And then there's the kind of stress, as we know, we hold on to cortisol, which is the stress hormone, and that creates inflammation in the body, and it exacerbates weight gain, particularly around the belly area. We know about that. Education. I mean, if you've grown up in a household or generations of um, families where fast food and microwave dinners are the thing, then you're not educated around health and nutrition. You're not educated, are you? You put the television on, and you've got Deliveroo, Eat Just Eat. That's the point here as well, actually, isn't it? You can have
Yeah.
food on your doorstep in 20 minutes, and they're actively telling you if you don't have it within
Oh,
X amount of time, we'll give you a
sorry,
refund.
food, food
Yeah, yeah, let's be careful
box.
how we
Yeah,
label it. Yeah,
yeah,
so I think there's so many factors at play, but I'm genuinely seeing other, not just the obesity crisis, but other things that's starting to concern me. Young children who have got asthma and
mm,
eczema.
yeah,
What's causing that? What's causing this acidity in the body? How are we addressing these things? Are we still just putting Diprobase on our skin and saying, well, that will help to smooth and soften the skin, or are we going a little bit deeper and saying what's
yeah,
causing the acids? What's going on with this heavy metal toxicity everywhere? What's
yeah,
being, I don't know, I don't want your video to be taken down, but what are we being sprayed with day in, day out?
yeah,
So I'm seeing lots of this, lots of opportunity, but like you, there's still not enough of a pivot from all of these kind of conditions and illnesses and obesity to a more natural way of living. People just aren't interested. They just
yeah,
boom, until you're in a health crisis. And I don't know about your clients. Most of my clients come to me when they've
yeah,
either had part of their colon taken away,
yeah,
or they really are in a terrible condition and they haven't got
yeah,
any other option.
yeah. And then we have to literally unpick years and years of abuse on so many levels. They've been abused by the system. They've been abusing themselves, obviously, probably not knowing it. But yeah, we have to try and unpick and try and unpick that brainwashing as well that's happened. It was really interesting, actually. I saw a video that was posted on Facebook by somebody that I know, and they basically talked about how people were in the 70s, and you're roughly the same age as me, aren't you? So you know the 70s. And there were no overweight people, that just, and that they were talking about in the 70s, um school meals were, it was they was actually cooked by ladies in school, and it was proper food. You didn't have a choice. You couldn't go and just order a beef burger or turkey twizzlers, whatever. This was proper food. And I remember in my primary school, they had, not every day that they'd have it, but they have a really nice salad with a really nice dressing. And I loved it. I
Oh,
absolutely loved it. And then when I went to secondary school, it was all chips and beans and blah blah, this, that, and the other. So that all changed. But I think that they said in the 80s that changed. So it was basically people like Break Brothers and the like. Sorry, breaks. Bringing in food and just heating it up.
yeah.
That so there was that layer, because there's so many layers to all of this, isn't there? So
Well, it's
that,
the conveyor belt, isn't it? It's the conveyor
yeah,
belt attitude, isn't it? That kind of came into the school system, and as you say, it's all outsourced, it's brought in, it's already been cooked, en
Yeah.
masse. I mean, I remember school used to have, I mean, we had sandwiches. We were not those kids that had school dinners because my parents were poor, but not poor enough to have free school dinners, but we weren't rich. So we used to have sandwiches in the old bread bags, right? We used to feel, oh, I just remember feeling really embarrassed, like, oh, why can't I have cling film? Why can't I have foil? So glad my mum didn't put my sandwiches in foil. Jesus Christ, wrap your food in aluminium. All right.
No, I
Let's
know.
just think it through. But yeah, I used to have those big trays of, food that was made in the school on site,
Yeah.
and on the odd occasion that we might have had school dinner, it felt like it was, if it was a lasagna or if it was a little shepherd's pie or whatever it was
It was made, yeah.
homemade. You
It was
could tell it was
actually, and it was
homemade.
actually quite nice. I remember the food that I had in my primary school was actually really quite
Yeah.
nice. And then what they were saying is at that time, everybody started to have cars, so people were walking less, so the exercise automatically went down. People went from a more agricultural life, and this is probably going back to the 50s even, but from a more agricultural life, and then sitting behind a desk. So you've got that on both counts, and then everything went into the meal for one, the microwavable meals, if I can say it. I mean, God, I mean, the microwave has probably been like one of the worst things that's ever happened,
Oh my
because it just
God.
depletes every kind of nutrient that's in there, right? It's literally
Absolutely. Yeah. And
so
then you've got to add in, sorry, don't mean to cut you, but it's really important. I think you've also got to add in, that period of time where women started going actually out to work. And
yeah,
then you've got all of this advertising pushing women into those
yeah,
get your dinner in 5 minutes. These
yeah,
ads that are showing you how to just stick something in the microwave, and
yeah,
all of a sudden everything becomes convenient and easy. So you haven't got Earth Mum at home. And listen, and I'm not, a feminist, and I'm whatever. We want to work, we don't want to work, it's entirely up to us. But you've lost that kind of family unit where mum would be able to cook dinner because she
yeah,
had time to think it
yeah,
through. And now we want all these mod cons. You're all keeping up with the Joneses because,
yeah.
Mrs. Smith down the road, she's got a microwave and she's got a front-loading washing machine.
Yeah.
And, all of a sudden we're in this world of convenience. And I think that's what's just got worse and worse and worse as time's gone on.
100%. And I think that women specifically have been dealt a very poor kind of um
Card.
yeah, yeah. Because we were told back in the 70s and 80s that we could have it all. not
Yeah.
only not only could we go to university, and could we have children, and could we have a family, we could also have a full-time job. No, you bloody can't. No, you bloody can't, and keep your nervous system. You
Yeah.
absolutely can't, you
And
know.
our kids, bloody hell, that's a whole nother podcast, isn't it?
Uh, yeah, I mean,
What?
and so we have been fucked on so many levels. I could talk endlessly about the ways that women have been suppressed and put
Yeah.
down, and is it any surprise that people get into their 50s in their menopause, and everything just goes skew with, because for their whole life we have been fucked with. Excuse my French, but
That's right. I know
but
French.
but 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 yeah, you're completely right. If the mum isn't at home, or a parent isn't at home to be able to cook, then what is the option? It's sticking stuff in the microwave, or now it's calling for a
Yeah.
takeout.
And it feels like it's like been a deliberate dismantling of the family system. And
Oh,
actually,
100%.
what's really interesting is I'm seeing a return because obviously I have children and I'm witnessing this return to that kind of family unit and
Yeah,
that mum being in that kind of position of being the nurturer and the carer and the provider
this is
rather than this trying to, divide these roles up. I'm sorry, shoot me down if you want to.
yeah.
I don't care. This is my personal opinion. And, having been a single parent and having raised a child, which means obviously I raised my son alone, and what goes with all of that, trying to have a successful career, which I've achieved, trying to be a mum, which I've achieved, trying to buy a house, buy property, get on the property ladder, which I achieved, and then trying to have a life that's meaningful to me as well outside of those things, the inner world, my inner world, and then trying to be everything, and all those things to everybody else, including my family. Where is the time to then you think about your own needs and what you want and what kind of life you want to carve out? It's all external, it's all exterior stuff, and
Mhm.
it's difficult when you've got to do all of that on your own. You haven't got you haven't got a partner to support you. That journey I look back at it, and I've learned all of my biggest lessons in those years, but they were really challenging and difficult years. And now I'm seeing the return of, let's stay together even when it's difficult, because we've got children and they mean something. They're the future. We need to make sure that we give them the best life. And the best life they can have is having mum and dad together. Obviously, if it's toxic, if it's violent, if it's all of that stuff, yeah, obviously no. But putting your children first and making sure that they're in a loving, nurturing home where there is um, love for mum and dad, and there is food on the table that's been created by mum and dad, and it's not just chips from the chippy down the road or unhealthy stuff. These things I'm witnessing this stuff as, yeah, making almost a bit of a comeback, which
Yeah,
I'm really
and I
happy to see.
And I think that this is good. And I think that when we unpick exactly what has been done to us by the systems, like schools, for example, schools were basically created to program children so they could go and work in a factory, which is nuts. I mean, as school, as you know, is not about teaching anything apart from teaching kids how to pass exams. They are basically taught zero life skills. Yes, there are some schools coming up that are doing a little bit more of that. There needs to be way more of that. I mean, the day I hear that a school is teaching kids how to meditate will be the day I go, oh my God, that's amazing.
Let's go to school. Yeah. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah,
my grandchildren are homeschooled.
yeah,
Right, so they've been taking out of mainstream
yeah,
schooling. It's been about, I think about probably coming up for a year. They're thriving. There's nothing wrong with them. I mean, people often go, "Well, what about the social aspect?" Yeah, what about it?
yeah,
Why is it that we have to keep externalizing everything outside of the family unit? They're at
yeah,
home. They're with
yeah,
mum. They're with
yeah,
dad. They're with their siblings. They're learning. They've got extracurricular activities, which include going out and, I don't know, foraging or learning
yeah,
how to cook or do
yeah.
other stuff, right? Learning things about the world and how the world works, the natural world.
Mm,
Um, but yeah, I agree, because I think school is there to kind of create little obedient foot soldiers that have to put their hand up for everything. Can I go to the toilet, please? Can I speak, please? And that prepares them for the world of work where they have to
yeah,
go in and be in this environment where they are, confined and have to ask permission. And, so
yeah,
you're right. They're not really preparing them for the real world. They're preparing them
yeah,
for a world that they want them to
yeah.
be.
Yeah, I mean, and is it any surprise that kids have ADHD? And I think there's other layers of things that have contributed to the ADHD kind of explosion. But if you're 6, you do not want to sit in a classroom, for 6 8 hours a day or whatever. You want to go and swing in trees, and you want to go and run around. I actually quite liked school. I actually quite liked doing all of that, and I used to like to run around. But some kids, you've just got to run them the whole time,
Yeah.
otherwise they go nuts. And the other thing that I found really surprising that I found out recently is, so sleep, which, as you know, is so important and so integral to our health, that's been screwed with as well. So the idea that we need 8 hours sleep was actually a marketing idea by mattress manufacturers. Got nothing to do with our biology or anything. So back in the back in the day, say let's say 1700s or whatever. I mean, who the hell knows what happens back then, because our whole history has been messed with as well, right? That's a whole nother rabbit hole.
Another podcast.
Oh my God. But so how we used to sleep, was we used to sleep at sunset, because obviously, we didn't have electricity, or whatever. And we would sleep probably till about midnight, or one or two or whatever. And then we'd have, a gap where we'd wake up. And this could be, I don't know, maybe you would do some work, maybe you'd make love, maybe you would do something that needed to be done, maybe tend to animals, or whatever. And then at 3 or 4 in the morning, you'd go back to sleep, and you would wake up when the sun came up, which obviously is dependent upon your part of the world, and whether it's winter or summer, or whatever. So this biphasic sleep is actually really normal for us. And I also heard that as menopausal women, it was our duty, if you like, as grandparents, to look after the child when it woke up at 2, 3 in the morning, to give the parents a little bit of rest. And so, is it any surprise that we wake up at 3 a.m.? So there's that, but the whole biphasic sleep obviously doesn't fit in with a 9 to 5.
Yeah.
Doesn't fit in with a 9 to 5 that they've tried to get us into. Doesn't fit with a mattress manufacturer's marketing kind of dream. I don't know if you've ever read any of Tim Ferriss's work. His 4 hour work
For
week.
our body. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. I've got both.
so I remember reading that he used to sleep in 2 4 hour slots
Hmm.
throughout the day, and that worked for him. Obviously, it worked for him because he was able to work, and write around, his schedule, But yeah, he would sleep 4 hours at night, and then he would sleep for 4 hours during the day, and he reckoned it was a really good way. And I heard this recently about the biphasic sleep, and that it was the 8 hour sleep, and that it was a marketing person's kind of push. And I was like, well, this fits in with what I read that Tim Ferriss wrote. I must have read that book nearly 20 years ago.
Mm.
And I thought, oh, this really, really interesting. So they've been, not only they've been messing with our schooling and our food and our exercise and our sleep and where we live. Like, we should be living in nature, and we live in concrete boxes, and we go from one concrete box to another in a metal thing. So we live out of cohesion with nature. They've even messed our sleep as well. So I was like, oh my God, it's crazy. Is it any surprise that everyone's health is screwed?
Yeah, no, because we're not living in alignment with what we should be doing, what we should be feeling, as you say. If you're waking up with the rhythms of nature, you're going to sleep with the rhythms of nature. If you've only got to look at nature and look at what nature does, look at when the birds go to sleep.
Yeah.
Look at when the birds wake up. Look at what nature really is doing. Look at when winter sets in. We shouldn't be out there, busying ourselves during the winter months. We should be resting and recovering and recuperating, preparing ourselves for when spring genuinely comes. But then we can talk about the whole Gregorian calendar as well, and how
Oh
12
God.
months used to be 13 months. I mean, yeah, there's so many topics, Ali. I
Yeah.
just don't know where
Yeah.
we start and stop. But no, I'm with you on so many of these things, that but if we go back to particularly around sort of health, I am really seeing some, even people in my own immediate circle, I'm seeing health challenges coming up time and time again. Um, and some of that worries me. A lot of it worries me. Some of it, I think, well, people are just getting a little bit older. But as we know, age is not a determining factor for illness. It's the
Yeah.
accumulation of bad habits that
Yeah.
then eventually come back to bite you. It's the same analogy with the car, isn't it? You've got a beautiful car, I don't know, you've got a Porsche sitting on the drive, and then you're just putting, standard cheap diesel in it or cheap oil in it. And when you could have been putting the top grade stuff in, you bought it into the car, and then over time it deteriorates because, well, you just haven't looked after it. And it's the same with our bodies. And people recoil at doing fasts. People recoil at doing enemas. Oh, I couldn't do that. I couldn't do that. And I used to be one of those people. I think, oh my God, how would you do that? And obviously, since studying at the School of Natural Medicine, those 12 lessons on healing diets, which allow you to become a nutritionist at the end, do require you to tap into some of those really deeply alternative
Yeah.
healing modalities, which include
Yeah.
doing enemas, coffee enemas, which include fasting, which include not necessarily water fasting, but even just doing a fruit fast or mono dieting, just to
Yeah.
see. And a mono diet, I think, is just so important and pivotal for people to understand what foods are actually triggering you, so you can take them out of your diet for a little while and understand the foods that actually work with your rhythm.
Yeah.
So I find that some of those things, I'm still incorporating those kind of ideas into my clients' programs. But you can't change years of abuse and misuse in a 12-week program. It's just not possible. It's just a sort of
Yeah.
stepping stone, isn't it? I don't know if you find that with your clients. I do the 12-week transformation program with them, and then most of them do sort of come back and say, can we do something else? Or they go off and, then figure out other ways to improve their health or not. They go back to where they were because
Yeah.
often 12 weeks isn't quite enough, I think.
Yeah, I think that a 3 month kind of thing, whatever that thing looks like, is a foundation, rather than it's like that 6 week get ripped thing in the gym. I mean, it's utter shit, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that a lot of what I'm seeing at the moment is just trying to undo habits of getting out the processed food. Even that, even just a push to whole food. Let's just go towards whole food. And there is always going to be a bit of processed food, fun food, should we say, in there. But that shouldn't be what your meals consist of, you know, time and time again. Um, yeah.
It's
Um,
how we use food, isn't it, as well? There's a conversation about how we use food. Are we using it as fuel or are we using it as comfort? There's space to have comfort food. I mean, this is not a what's the word, like a complete elimination of everything. You've got to have a little bit of what your body wants and what you
yeah,
crave. But there's
yeah,
I don't know whether you want to call it the 90-10 or the 80-20 principle, 80% of what your body needs to fuel it, and then 20% of what you fancy. There's nothing
yeah,
wrong with that. But looking
yeah,
at where your cravings come from, that all that stuff was really interesting for me during our education. If you're really eating your food really, really fast, what other areas of your life are you speeding through? What does that mean? Where do you need to slow down? Can kind of just connect the dots. Why are you constantly looking for sweet food? What Why isn't there enough sweetness in your life? Look at that area of your life. Perhaps you need to bring more sweetness, more love, more tenderness into your life. So I really loved learning with the school. I just thought it was the most wonderful course. And when I looked down the syllabus, I just thought this is exactly what I need. It's exactly what I want to learn about. And I did stop there. I didn't do the full naturopathy like you did. I kind of just stopped at healing diets and wanted to become a nutritionist. And yeah, I've loved doing it. I love doing it. I just feel like I've learned so much, whether it's water, water being the first lesson, the most fundamental lesson. Yeah, I've loved it. It's massively
I,
changed my life.
I think one of the things that has come out has really kind of sunk in with me, probably towards the end of my studies, but definitely kind of in my clinical practice and over the last kind of few years, is how much the emotions the emotional side of things has an impact on our health. And just as you said there quite succinctly, food and emotions are entwined anyway. Um, but I've just started reading a book, and I can't remember what it's called. It's by Peter Levine, and it's like the body holds the score, but it's kind of it goes a bit deeper
Yeah.
into getting rid of kind of trauma and PTSD and other negative emotions that are stuck within you. And he starts off by talking about how, say you're looking at like an impala, for example, that's been chased by a cheetah. It will often just freeze. And what often happens with us when we've got have some traumatic event, we don't go through that freeze phase.
Mm.
And this is the freeze phase. He describes it as when you're driving along in the car and got your foot on the gas, but you got a foot on the brake at the same time, and your body is creating all of this. But like it really wants to go, but
Yeah.
your body's being forced to stay still for whatever reason, because it thinks it's the best way to kind of push through at that particular time. And you can imagine the amount of emotions that are then lodged in in your body, in your muscle, in your fascia, in your organs, literally everywhere. Um, and yeah, I mean, it doesn't even have to be a particularly traumatic thing, like I know, like child abuse or a car crash. It could be anything that our bodies feel is uh, an emotion that's quite strong that we just don't know how to kind of deal with. And I think generally as people, we don't know how to feel
Mm.
and let go. And I think especially with men as well, we tell men and boys, you can't cry, you can't do this, subdue, subdue, subdue. It's not good to show your emotions. It's not good to be angry. It's not good to cry. Um, and these emotions have to go somewhere, and they get lodged in, and yeah, and we are dealing, I think, not only on all these layers that we've just talked about, so some of them, but from this emotional kind of level. How many of these are our bodies actually kind of holding on to, and what issues are they actually causing?
That's a really good point. No, it's a really
It's
good point. And so go on.
Yeah, no,
Sorry.
I was just about, it's like unpicking, you get a ball of wool, and it's been a knot, and you start picking it and you get all of these threads out, and it's like, well, which one is it? Which one is the root cause? And this is the thing that I'm finding with my clients at the moment. There's so many layers to people's ill health at the moment, and it's trying to unpick
Yeah.
which one is good.
Nutrition is, I mean, obviously one factor, but you can't do it. I know I've always said, and I go back to my original course notes sometimes, but for me, it was the vitality that comes back into the body has to connect with it's not just food, because if your mind isn't right and if your body and spirit aren't right, then you can't, all those modalities, they all sort of work together. So the recent stuff I've been doing with the mediumship also looks at how we heal the body. So I go to different classes, but one of the healing classes that I go to, so we actually do healing on other people and they do healing on us. And I had a really interesting experience with one of the ladies there. And so if you think about the chakras, the seven main chakras, um, she was really holding on to some emotions in her sacral region. And so she was laying on the bed, and various people were doing different types of healing on the areas that were closed versus open. So I just felt like shifting the energy. I don't know, something said to me there's some energy here that needs shifting around her sacral area. And she started to cry because she was releasing emotion that was really, really, really strongly held in that kind of sacral area, that emotional kind of sort of area of passion and all of that fire and feeling. And once she released it, she said to me after, she said, I feel so much better. I didn't even know I needed anything shifting there, but our body holds on because it's a protective mechanism. It's a way to protect the body from pain or from, I don't know, I guess imploding. So we can store that and block it. But there's obviously impact down the road, isn't there? And
Yeah.
so I do think that's quite a nice modality to bring in. A lot of people do think it's woo-woo. That's okay. It's okay to think it's woo-woo. I happen not to, and I happen to work with people that actually want to look at healing those parts of their bodies, when their energy centers are closed.
Yeah, I mean, and there are so many ways to do that, aren't there? I mean, is there a name to what you do that sort of healing? Is there a name to it, or is it just pre?
It's just energy healing. It
Yeah,
literally is just energy healing. So you would lay a client down on a bed. You could use a pendulum to do some dowsing and see which chakras are open, which ones are currently closed. And then the ones that are closed, you can either use crystals to reopen them. So if you think about the chakras, they all have a different color that
yeah,
they're associated. You've got your white light for your crown, you've got your purple for your third eye, your blue for your throat chakra, green or pink for the heart chakra, yellow for the solar plexus. This is a good test. Orange for the sacral, and then red for the root. So any of those areas that are currently showing up as closed, you can use your own, either use a crystal to lay that on the area, or you can use your hands if you've got sort of healing hands. Um, and you can really re-energize and open up, shift the trauma. You can't do it in a day.
yeah,
Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't, depending on how deep the wound is or how deep the trauma is. But
yeah,
yeah, it's definitely something that I believe in it and I've seen it work.
yeah.
Energy
And
healing, chakra healing, you know.
yeah, I mean, I've had Reiki, and I know that Reiki works on the same
Yeah.
level. I met a homeopath the other day who does aura healing, which I think again is very, very similar.
Similar.
I'm looking at the emotion code at the moment,
Ah, yes.
which is basically just healing emotions that are stuck, but also you can pick up on inherited emotions which are stuck. Which what is great about that, if say it's an inherited emotion from your mum,
Oh,
and you clear it from yourself, you clear it from her as well,
love it.
which
And
is
you do, and you clear it for 7 generations after you too. It's in
yes,
sevens. It
yeah,
comes 7 generations before.
yeah,
And if your mother's still alive, yeah, you will
yeah,
heal her wound, you'll heal yours, and for the generations after. Oh, it's giving me goosebumps.
yeah,
Oh, I
yeah,
love that.
yeah. So there are loads of ways, and just to say, I'm just starting to get into that at the moment, because I think that the energy healing piece is something that was missing from my skill set. But in the past, I've always kind of said to clients, look, go and get some energy healing, try and get rid of these stuck emotions, blah blah. And just as you say, depending upon what kind of trauma we're talking about, Rome was not built in a day. Sometimes it takes many years, and it takes kissing a few frogs as well, because unfortunately there are some quacks out there. But you have to work with someone who resonates with you as well, so yeah, there's a bunch of different work there, but
Yeah,
certainly think, and I think that all of us have these
sorry.
emotions stuck, you know um to what effect they're having on us, who the hell knows, but yeah, we all have them. And interestingly, I was reading about a heart wall. Apparently 93% of people have a heart wall, which is basically where we've created these negative emotions, and then we've literally created a wall around our heart to um prevent us working through that stuck emotion. So you've got to kind of work very accurately on that heart wall, but also, stops kind of positive emotions kind of taking place a little bit as well.
Hmm.
Yeah, great.
Visualize. So I think what's happened to me more recently this year with the mediumship work that I've kind of started exploring, I think visualizations have become visualizations for me are really an important part of the work. So if you can visualize the heart chakra and open it, that can help to remove some of those blockages and, sort of tear the wall down generally, gently, slowly. As you say, you can't do it all in one hit. And there's, if this is years of protection that you put around yourself, to
Yeah,
suddenly remove it all in one go, that's going to have its own impact elsewhere. You've got to
yeah,
take it slowly. And actually, the heart is one of the core areas of trust. So to remove that immediately will certainly will create blockages somewhere else in the
yeah,
body. As human beings, we really do need to be able to trust. And I
yeah,
think slowly, slowly, slowly taking those walls down is what will have the longest serving impact. It's a little bit just the same as what we've just described. Years of abusing your body with negative talk, bad food, all of the rest of it is not
yeah,
going to be undone in a 12-week program. It's going to take time. And you've got to be gracious and give your body and yourself that time. Don't expect it to happen, like you say, 6-week muscle building program is it's just rubbish. It's never going
yeah,
to work. And all these lies that are so again, another area, all these lies that are sold to these vulnerable people on the internet is quite scary. And now we've got this new modern epidemic of fat loss injections and weight loss injections, the ramifications of that, listen, may be beneficial for us as, natural healers and natural health practitioners down the road because their guts are going to be on fire because
yeah,
anything that's transiting through the body or being held in the body that should be transited out of the body in its most natural way is going to cause some kind of impact down there in that kind of, through that digestive system. I don't know why people are just not waking up to the possible ramifications down the road because everybody wants a quick fix because we want to look pretty now. We want to be out there looking great, looking the part. Hmm. It's
yeah,
just
yeah,
it's frightening for me. It really is. I'm seeing people losing copious amounts of weight on these weight loss jabs and their skin is all sagging. They got that, what's the sort of pixie face look, that's going on? Bit of a Sharon Osbourne look,
yeah.
isn't it? It's
But I mean,
horrendous.
it's destroying their muscle mass, it's destroying their bone mass, it's destroying their mental health, it's destroying their gut health and probably every single organ health as well, because um yeah, it's completely screwing their metabolism by doing all of this as well. So but this is this is what's been, it's all by design, isn't it? It's like all of these drugs like statins, for example, which you're supposed to be taking for the rest of your natural life because cholesterol's bad. um but of course, you're never supposed to come off them. So if you stop taking the GLP-1s, then you're probably going to put fat back on because you've got no muscle mass. You've got and so you don't know how to eat. So you'll just go back to your crappy
Yeah.
habits that you had before. So you will put on weight, so it'll send people back to the GLP-1 because it worked. Ozempic, Mounjaro, it worked. So they'll take it again. It's crazy, but it's all by design. And of course, the GP is gonna prescribe it because they get paid three
Well,
thousand.
they're just salespeople for the pharmaceutical companies. That's all they are. They don't look up from their prescription pad. You go into the GP. I mean, I haven't been in a GP surgery for years now, right?
Yeah,
And I won't go because now even my local GP surgery requires you to do a whole biometric online bullshit. I'm not doing it. I'm not
Yeah.
doing, I don't care. I know how to look after myself. And if I break a leg, then obviously that's a slightly different thing. I can't fix.
Yeah.
Well, I might be able to. I
Yeah.
might be able to with a little bit of
Yeah.
mm,
Comfrey.
comfort. Yeah, thank you. I was just thinking of the word. I was just thinking because my son
Yeah. And
broke his foot
even a
recently.
so would,
My
would,
son broke one of his toes recently, and I got him some comfrey, and he's absolutely swore by it.
yeah.
And I've got my DMSO and my chlorine dioxide, if I'm even allowed to say that. You might get taken down now if I've said that. But,
No.
unless there's a genuine reason, a surgical reason, I've
Yeah.
no need to go to the mainstream medical system.
Yeah.
But, and they
Yeah.
don't, as I say, they don't look up from their, prescription
No.
pads. And this has been going on for years. I remember when I was going to the GP years ago, what's the matter? You go in and you tell them, and he's like, okay, there you go. And he's written a prescription and you've gone out. Hold on a minute. When did you even diagnose? How did you diagnose me? How did you
Yeah.
know? You didn't.
Yeah.
You're just
Yeah.
looking to make as much money as possible. It's no
Yeah.
joke that a 10-minute appointment is all you're allocating. You're only allowed to talk about one thing.
I,
Just, if you really think about it, if you've got to look at the system and you've got to break down the components and you've got to follow the money to know where the corruption lies.
it's absolutely right, and the fact that GPs are incentivized to prescribe these drugs, and how many drugs they're actually incentivized to prescribe, I don't know, but I know definitely the GLP ones they are. So that's pretty awful. But I have a dream. I have a dream.
Ah, Martin Luther King.
So my dream is that we have proper health centers. And so you'd have the doctors who are very good at piecing you back together, your trauma stuff,
Surgeons, yeah,
and yeah, the A&E stuff, great. If I'm in a car crash, I want my pain suppressed, right? That's probably the only time I'll ever take anything that will suppress anything. But what I'd like is, a whole kind of setup where you walk in as a patient and you go and see a triage nurse, should we say, and you explain what's wrong with you. They take your health history, they do a long intake form, and then they say, well, these are your options. So you've got a naturopath over there, you've got a homeopath over there, you've got an energy healer there, you've got this, that, and the other, you've got chiropractor, you've got an osteopath, you've got da, da, da. All of these practitioners, all of these, all under one roof, and you have, and this is, people are, and it's all funded externally. How, I don't know, but the person doesn't have to spend lots of money. Obviously the practitioners are getting paid because they're going to have to pay their bills, but then they get proper healthcare. And in Chinese medicine, how it used to work is you used to go to see your Chinese doctor once a month, and if you got sick, then you would stop paying him because he's not doing his job to keep up your health. And that's how it should be. Everyone should go, once a month to get their tune up, should we say. We service our cars, we don't service our own health.
I agree.
And I'm sorry.
When are we setting this up? When are
Yeah,
we building this medical center?
whenever you want, mate. I'm
Let's do
all
it.
I'm all in. And it's just nuts how, yeah. So yeah, that has to go completely outside the system because the system doesn't want us healthy, right? Does not want us healthy.
Yeah, there's no
Um,
profit. There's no profit in healthy
yeah,
people. Suddenly, yeah, healthy people open their eyes, open their minds, open their spirits, and they start to see what's really going on. But listen, as much as as much as we want that, I think we just have to accept we can't change the whole world, but we can change part of our own world and help the people that will want to help. Even things like this, even these conversations, these podcasts, there's
yeah,
just getting the messages out to people, isn't it? That
yeah,
even if it's just to say, look, we're here. If you want help, if you want advice, if you want to come and talk to somebody, even in its
yeah,
basic form. I mean, for me, I'm really focusing on women's health. right now. So I've got a little bit of a niche going on. I'm going to be setting up a menopause circle. I'm going to be creating a menopause group. And I want to be able to help women through this kind of transitional time. I think it's so important that we get the love and support and nurturing and care, because this is another thing we have to go through as women. And it's
Yeah,
again, like I was saying earlier, the quick fix is go out there and get your HRT.
yeah.
Understand the long-term ramifications of that. There is an alternative. I'm
Mm,
not ever going to criticize anybody's choice, but there are alternatives, and the things that are coming up for you now at this point in your life are largely things that you've suppressed in the
yeah,
other areas of your life. So it's time to give yourself a chance to really move into your wise woman years. And that
yeah,
wise woman, the connotation of a wise woman is some little old lady sitting there with a little staff and a, hood over her head. No, wise women are still got fire in their bellies. They're still running with the wolves. They're still out there working. They might not be pacing themselves at that same fast pace because they don't need to anymore.
yeah.
Let's go and curate a
Quality
life.
rather than quantity.
Hmm?
Quality rather than quantity.
Absolutely. This is a time where you can curate a life that aligns with your kind of your higher needs, your higher self, or I just don't, I just tell all of my ladies, just pace yourself at the pace you need to go at, because you run the risk of burnout. And, that is disastrous for your mind, your body, and your spirit. So that's really an area that I'm, massively interested. In fact, I was supposed to do a talk yesterday and I missed it because I had a family event to go to. But I'm going to be doing a talk in September, and it's just not specifically menopause; it's women's health in general. I want women of all ages to be able to join in the conversation, and actually prepare themselves, learn the lessons now as you're in this kind of youthful era of your life.
Mm.
Learn the lessons now that are going to help you to transition really smoothly and elegantly into that phase of life when you become the wise woman who's still running with the wolves. She's still sexy, she's still attractive, she's still all of those beautiful things that she always was. She's just a wiser version, and she's the version that ain't taking no shit from anyone anymore. More importantly.
Um, and I think on that note, I think that's a great place to stop for now. But I think we've got a million and one things that we can talk about. Can you tell me, with your energy healing, do you do that just in person or can you do that online as well? How?
Yeah, I'm not an online healer. I do that all in person. Yeah, it's
Okay.
not something haven't yet learned to do that at a distance.
And how about your nutritional consulting stuff? You can do that online as well, right?
Yeah, I do actually do most of that online, but I have recently had more clients in the local area that have actually asked to come and see me in person. So I have a clinic in my home,
Yeah.
in Epping, in Essex. So I do have space for people to come and visit me if they want to. But again, I'm quite flexible.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that I think it's really nice to have that FaceTime, literal FaceTime, not FaceTime,
I know what
with
you mean.
but it's also nice because sometimes people don't have someone in their local area, and they don't know who to kind of ask. Like I'm in Wales now, and obviously Wales is quite big, but I much prefer to do face-to-face stuff, but I can happily do online as well for pretty much everything.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, everyone, it broadens your sort of abilities to connect with a wider audience,
yeah,
whether that could even be a global audience, in the
yeah.
future. But it also means that, people can fit this stuff in around, can't get away from the fact that people have got super busy lives, and it
Well,
allows them
yeah,
to
yeah.
fit that in around their own schedules. So,
And I think that's probably one of the only things. Well, there's been a few good things that have come out of COVID, but the whole kind of we kind of the whole video calling thing has really kind of taken off since then, and that is a good thing as well. So yeah, so yeah, any last kind of thoughts before we wrap this up until our next time?
Oh, no, I just want to say thank you. I love these conversations and being able to have them, with someone like yourself. It's just such a pleasure. It really is, because there's so much alignment in the way that we think and see the world. So just having, yeah, it's so
Just
nice to have a conversation. I look forward to the next one so much.
and you'll have to come and see me in Wales, my love.
Of course, I'm looking forward to that. I'm coming to camp out for a weekend, glamping for a weekend.
You can have the glamp. You can have a glamp. We have a spare room for you, my love.
Oh,
Um,
bless you.
but yeah, and it's great because we said we had a few things to talk about, but we just chat, which is lovely.
No, exactly. It's perfect. It's how it's supposed to be, I think.
Exactly, exactly. Well, I look forward to the next one that we have together, and yeah, hopefully everyone watching this has enjoyed it as well as much as we have.
Thanks,
Um,
Sally.
stay on, and I'll and we'll chat in a little bit. But thanks everyone for watching, and we'll see you soon.